We all know about the big brands, Nike and Apple and Starbucks, the feel of the Starbucks cup in your hand, or the quality of the boxes and the unboxing process with Apple. All of these sort of ancillary things come together with what we call big brand energy. And for smaller brands, maybe thinking that's reserved for big brands. You have to spend millions of dollars to get that kind of experience, but there's actually ways you can get it as a smaller brand. Here's how. One thing big brands are not afraid to do is set themselves apart. One of the examples that we love to talk about here is Chobani Yogurt. Some of the most well-known brands were taking their iconic labels and stripping them all down and making it just as minimal as possible. They came out of the gate with an entirely new brand identity that was earthy and darker tones and organic feeling, and a new word mark that just flew in the face of what everyone was doing at the time. It was a gamble on their part and it paid off big. Chobani is one of the most recognized brands in yogurt today. And while yogurt is not the most exciting category, it's a perfect example of how big brands are not afraid to stand apart. So if small brands are not afraid to change or do something to stand out, you can have the same effect that Chobani had when they introduced their new brand. Another thing that big brands do is they use agencies, period. Sometimes they use an external agency, sometimes they have an internal agency, but what they're not doing is hiring one person to do marketing and design and brand strategy planning and video editing and social media. That's impossible. No one can do that. Big brands use agencies, and the best big brands are using creative professionals that know what they're doing. So of course, we're a creative agency and we're sitting here telling you need to collaborate with a creative agency. No one knows your business better than you do. The problem is you know too much about your business and you're thinking about it like your business. You're not thinking about it like your customers. An external agency is going to push you outside of your comfort zone to help you think about how your customers are thinking about your product or your service.
You can't really have big brand energy unless you have good design. Upon first glance, you might not necessarily realize that you're looking at something that we would consider low-end design, but there's a few dead giveaways that will show if it's a low-end design. One might potentially be hierarchy. A good designer is going to use white space in a way that enforces visual hierarchy in a way that's going to get the messaging and the point across. So a good designer, a good agency is going to provide you with a strategy and design that are well thought out and executed. And even though you might be a small or medium-sized company, they're gonna think, oh, those people are the experts. I trust them. I wanna buy their product because the way that they're presenting themselves looks super polished and professional, just like larger companies.
The way big brands nail their messaging and storytelling is that they don't just start pushing stuff out there. They take the time on the strategy end, and that means really nailing their mission, vision, and values. People that work in an organization, you've already chosen that organization. You've chosen to work there. You chose to go there every single day. What you've got to do is get outside of those walls and think about the people that haven't chosen you yet. One big brand that has really nailed their messaging and storytelling for a long time now is Nike. And their story has been everyone is an athlete. They don't necessarily use that as a tagline on every piece of marketing material, but that's been the underlying strategy now for a long time. And we get it. You're probably sitting there thinking, well, I'm not Nike. I don't have $1 million budget. You can do this. It goes back to thinking about your customers and how they interact with you and what they want from you, what they really want from you, what is going to connect with them on an emotional level. And once you figure out that strategy, the storytelling more or less kind of surfaces on its own almost. It almost becomes obvious. Big brand energy, storytelling, messaging, it starts with strategy, and that starts with really understanding the people you're trying to connect with.
When we talk about creating an experience around your brand, no one does it better than Apple. If you've ever owned an Apple product, if you've ever been to an Apple store, you know that there is an experience that you have that it feels uniquely Apple. And so when we talk about that with smaller brands, what we're talking about is you have to look so far beyond just the logo on a t-shirt or on a hat. You have to think about how your brand is going to interact with your customers at any point. If you sell a product, that's the unboxing of your product and the materials used in the packaging. If you sell a service, then it is the onboarding process that your new clients have as they engage with your product or your staff, the way you answer the telephone or what your email signature says. Like all of these details, anything that has anything to do with the way you do business is a detail that you can pay attention to. And that's what big brands are doing. And that's how you get big brand energy.